correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Hey, you guys hear something different in the opening there?
I did, Nick. We are honored to say that as of this episode, we are a proud member of the D20 Radio Network. And on the network, you're going to find a wide variety of podcasts dedicated to the hobby that we all love, role-playing games. Shows like Me and Steve Talk RPGs.
In their most recent episode, Steve and Steve talked about shopping. Perhaps the most low-key divisive thing we commonly do in games. Some love doing it, some hate doing it. Some don't much care either way. So how do you keep the whole table interested? Or how do you keep yourself interested? That's what they chat about in this latest episode. Check out Me and Steve Talk RPGs whenever you get to your podcasts.
Thanks, Robert. And we skipped over our usual catch-up of what we've been doing lately because, well, all of us have been doing the same thing, having a blast at GamerNation Con. And that brings us to our special guest, host of the Order 66 podcast, or so I've been told, because I never listened to the Order 66 podcast, and an organizer of GamerNation Con, GM Chris. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet, GM Chris.
What is up, Gamer Nation? GM Chris here, and I am happy to be here. And yeah, it's kind of fitting. You guys have officially joined the podcasting ranks of D20 Radio after just coming back from D20 Radio's official convention. So yeah, it was a good time.
It was, and thank you for letting us join the fun of D20 Radio.
Oh, well, thank you guys for being such awesome community members. Are you kidding?
Thank you very much for joining us. And we're honored to join the fun of D20 Radio.
And get to do our own thing there ourselves.
We'll dive right in because we have Chris for a short time tonight. But GamerNation Con, we talked about it. We kind of went into a little bit of detail, pimping it out a couple episodes ago.
We might have.
But we might have, once or twice. But for
Each
my
episode.
money, the best gaming con that I have ever attended, the best sci-fi con, any con that I've been to, the best one, because what I love about it is it's a great big family.
Also, for those in the great state of Texas, it's local.
Yeah, there's that
True.
too. And so thank you for putting it on every year, Chris. I know that it is a huge undertaking for you.
It's a labor of love, to be sure. And if you told me, a dozen years ago that we'd be doing this with regularity, I would have laughed at you. It started off as a bit of a fluke, kind of a stretch goal reward for trying to do a Kickstarter to fund 1 year of podcasting, and just raise a couple $100 for server fees, and it was like. Well, okay. What do we do if we're like because we're researching? Because this keep in mind, this is like 12, 13 years ago, right? Kickstarter isn't. Right. It's like, yeah. Apparently, you're supposed to have these things called stretch goals. It's like, oh, okay. Well, that's a neat idea. Well, you should have one crazy, one that's completely unattainable, but just it's fun. It's like, okay, well, $10,000 will host a convention. So that was literally the stretch goal, and we hit it. And it was like, well, I guess we need to figure out how to have a convention. So we did.
Crazy. You say that's crazy, but the last Neil Breen film was entirely crowdfunded.
Yeah?
We don't talk about that, Nick.
Yeah, we don't talk about Neil Breen. If you've never been subjected to Neil Breen, Chris, don't subject yourself.
Please don't.
I've seen clips. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Nick has made us watch like 3 movies.
We watched the latest one to torture us and himself.
Yeah, we made him, the last one we actually made him watch because it was a sequel to the one before that, and we all tried to escape Nick's house during that movie.
I think we lost Nick.
Yeah, and yeah, we forced him when we found out there was a sequel. We have to watch the sequel, and you have to remain sober while watching it.
Yeah, that's like watching The Room without throwing spoons at the screen. You just can't do it.
Yeah, it was a tough
Let's just
thing
say we
that-
ran to the door to get his key while he was crawling on the floor after us. Literally.
There was lots of great stuff at the con. I know, first off, very first thing I did, I was in GM Phil's RVG game of a session of Fractured Republic, which I have been totally not listening to every episode of the Order 66 podcast with bated breath about the Fractured Republic setting. So awesome work you guys are doing there. I'm loving it. And it was great to get to play in it. What did you guys do first?
Well, Nick and I were actually in the same game, and also an RVG game, with Steve, one of the hosts of Me and Steve Talk RPGs. And we got to play a fun little game called Slay Industries. And what was interesting about that, Nick?
Oh, it was very interesting. Steve, amazing GM. Very knowledgeable about the concept.
Oh, yes. It's basically sci-fi. What if Amazon ruled the galaxy?
Basically,
what if?
Yeah, I think we're getting there, Robert. I think we're getting there.
Yeah, but what if they did it for like 900 years? Just ruled the entire galaxy for 900 years, and you basically are freelance not leased operatives out of their company, and you basically do jobs for really, really low pay, and you basically are working up the corporate ladder. And what's really interesting is that they really jump into the corporate
ladder.
I mean, aren't all corporate ladders nonsensical?
Like it's very much,
no, but these guys did their research.
Well, this would take it. Like this is like the classic like Brazil sort of like Monty Python parody of like a corporate structure.
Yes, because we started at corporate security clearance 10. And Steve told us how it goes is that it goes 10, 10.1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. And then you go to 9, and then 9.1, 9.1A, 9.1B. And the lower you get, the more security clearance you have. So it's like, no, for this job, you need a level 9.1C theta alpha 7.
That's hilarious.
Man. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It reminds me of one of my and it's free. It's free and you can find it. One of my favorite quick RPGs is published by one of my RPG heroes, Robin Laws, and he who wrote Robin's Guide to Good Game Mastering way back in the day. And the game is called In Space.
and there's like
it's basically Hitchhiker's Guide if it was an RPG. It's absolutely fantastic, but it's a diceless system. It uses token mechanic.
Really?
Where if you want to resolve, it's absolutely fascinating. Like the GM has a pool of tokens, and every player has a pool of tokens, which you keep secret. And if there's ever a conflict between the GM's narration and the player's narration, you literally have, or player versus player, you literally have a silent bid. And you reveal your tokens, and whoever wins.
It's kind of everyone is John, but without revealing.
Oh yes,
to an extent. Although there is obviously dice, and everyone is John. But
it's the best example I have to give.
Yeah, so and whoever bids the most loses their tokens, but they get to narrate their version of events, and then or they lose a portion of their tokens basically, and it's a sliding economy system too. And this is an older RPG, so like the tokens you give up go to the opposite side. So if the GM wins, the player gets currency to be awesome, and then you have like talents. Players have the equivalent of talents or feats that basically give you ghost tokens to bid on things. So you automatically assume to have free tokens to bid on certain activities. It's fun. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah,
sounds like it.
And very much like a corporate game.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But in the Slay Industries, the whole job we did, that whole one shot, basically we were clearing a sewer, and we fought rats, scabbers, and a giant cybernetic monster, and we got the equivalent of $75 for it.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Before I get lynched, I misspoke earlier. It's not Robin Laws who wrote that. It's another one who is one of my RPG icons. It was one of my other RPG icons, Greg Stolze. So before somebody out there throws something at me.
Yeah, and I have made a note that I'm looking for that now because it sounds fun.
And that was
Oh,
our.
Slight Industries is very fun to describe the system. It's the term. It's made by the same company that does the Terminator system that you and I played a couple days ago, a couple weeks back. So it's a similar system to that. The exact same system.
Cool. And something else that I had a lot of fun with. I played in a pickup game with Nate and the Tabletop Empire guys who came for the first time, and they great guys. And it was a very interesting. It was kinda sorta Genesis. It used Genesis and Star Wars dice, but it was run by Joe from Tabletop Empire. What he did was he he had us build out the setting and everything. Had cards like, okay, this is the vibe I want from each of you. I want something about the vibe of the game. Okay, now from each of you, I want input on the setting. Okay, now from
Oh,
each of
Lauren was
you,
telling me about that. Did you
yeah, from
yesterday?
each of you, I want something about the antagonists and the protagonists. And then we made our characters by each of us came up with one we came up with a character hook, then one descriptor of our own character, one descriptor of the character of the person to our right, and one for the person to our left.
It kind of looked
And
like a
then
pitch meeting.
it
I was
was
I was I was at a table next to running a Fire Tower, a board game, but like I was still able to listen in, and it's like
and it was a ton of fun because it was he had to make it all up on the fly based on all of this, some of it absolute contradictory nonsense that we came up with to set it up, and it was a lot of fun. We ended up the
that was
setting
on
was,
Friday, if I remember correct. Yeah.
I think so, the setting
Yeah,
was
because
kind
when
of
you were
a
playing Fire Tower, I was doing part 2 of Delta Green, so that
yeah
would be Friday.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and we were in kind of a Jetsons future with people on the ground levels who were edgy furries. And
Yeah,
the
that's what Lauren told me. I think that was
and
her
yeah, yes, that
suggestion.
was Lauren's contribution to the vibe, or to the antagonists, one of the two, edgy furries. Um, and there was a whole robots' rights thing, and we were having to investigate someone who had been kidnapped by aliens, and it was going all over the place, but it was a ton of fun. Lots of fun was had. I might have to try experimenting with that kind of freeform game setup sometime.
Yeah, it definitely, from what I was hearing, I didn't get the extra like mechanical like benefits of hearing that. I was on the other table, but it sounded like everyone was having a good time.
Oh yeah, the mechanics were just, basic narrative dice system, Genesis and Star Wars.
Ah,
We were using Genesis and Star Wars dice, and well, okay, slightly different. So rather than having a full character sheet, we had those three attributes of our characters that we all came up with as a group, right?
mhm.
And you decided which one took top priority, which was middle, and which was bottom. The top priority, you had 3 yellows in. The middle, you had 2 yellows and a green. And the bottom, you had 1 yellow and 2 green.
Yeah, that's pretty
And that's
cool.
that's how
Okay.
your stats
Okay.
worked. And if none of
That
those,
really works for a con game. That really works for one.
yeah, and if none of those attributes applied, then you had just base 3 green in your roll.
Yeah, I
So
can do
it
that.
was great. You could make arguments for boosts just like normal. You could make arguments for, okay, well, this is upgraded because of this reason. And it was a nice, simple distillation of narrative dice system. And it was a lot of fun. Worked great for a con game.
Fantastic.
Now, while all this is going on, Chris, of course, is having to keep the lid on the barrel of monkeys.
Uh, honestly, first few
And we,
days I ran 3 sessions first couple days, and that was
hey, we're the monkeys.
the bulk of my time. Those for those first few days, I'll tell you that. I did get to get some play in, which was nice on Saturday night. Darren West ran an incredible Star Wars game for us.
Oh yeah, was that the Rad Batch?
No, this was a Mandalorian game. So we were all Mandalorians. This is like shortly after the end of the last season of The Mandalorian in terms of timeline, and like undertaking a quest for Bo-Katan Kryze to go find the helm of Mandalore. It was basically a
that's a
train
fun
heist.
one.
It was
I
awesome.
saw the trailer for that.
Train
Nice.
heist? Oh, that's cool. I love
We've
train
done
heist.
one of those.
Yeah,
We've done several of those.
Yeah, it was a lot
Across
of fun.
my games. I love a train heist.
Yeah.
But for my own game, which I ran, is I always like to create my own themed game depending on the theme of the con. And obviously this is GamerNation Con X, and our theme was paranormal. And additionally, our guest of honor at the con, Sam Gregor Stewart, the RPG manager former RPG manager at Fantasy Flight Games, and now RPG manager at Edge Studios. Obviously Genesis, Star Wars. They just released a brand new game, which is Arkham Horror, the role-playing game. And Sam, as well as several of our attendees that were there, including Darren West and others, and D20 radio alums like Keith Capel, Scott Zumwalt, others, all worked on this system. And the DPS system, or dynamic pool system, it's kind of fascinating. And so I decided to kind of break from tradition for me, and I actually I learned DPS. And full transparency, ran it for the first time at the con, and did my own adventure in my own quirky style. I wasn't going to do a standard Lovecraftian Cthulhu horror. I had to make it a little more me. So it was DPS, but our pre-generated player characters were Fred Jones, Shaggy Rogers, Velma Dinkley, Daphne Blake, Scooby-Doo, and Scrappy-Doo. And
Scrappy was the Lovecraftian horror.
Please tell me he was.
He was the plucky guardian in the group, which was a lot of fun. But it was absolutely fantastic. I've been gaming lately the past several years. I got at the time I got it, it was a great sale. You can buy them anywhere at this price now. But I got myself a 42-inch flat screen for like $200, right? And that was like a few years back, and it was a huge sale. I was like, oh my gosh! And I've had a dream forever to have a digital game table. And
cool.
It's
one
one of those things where instead of having like a projection screen or something like that, these flat screens are pretty tough. And so literally 42 inches is huge and perfectly sized for your average RPG map.
A game a couple of years back, Daryl.
Yeah. I have similar coworker's sister sold me a 32-inch, I think flat screen for like $30 because one of the speakers blew.
It fits really well because I think it is the 30. It's like around the 30 inch.
Yeah. But it's a really uncomplicated setup. The most of the modern flat screens, they have a USB port in the back, and they have their own onboard media players. So you don't need to hook a laptop or anything. All you need is just the JPEG file, or the best. And the reason I wanted to do it is a video file. There's been a growing number of animated map makers out there.
Yeah.
And so you can literally load up these files onto a USB, put it in the back of the television, and it just plays. And most of them are making their maps specifically for a 42-inch TV. So if they're gridded, which DPS is a system that uses feet increments, unlike Genesis and Star Wars. So a gridded map matters. Those grids are perfectly scaled to where when they're projected on a 42-inch television, they're 1 inch. And without any modifications on your part. And there's sound and animation. There's a couple great guys on Patreon making content. And I got you guys ever get an asset like an awesome map or a cool set of minis or a terrain that's so cool, and you put it in your back pocket and you're like, I've got to devise an encounter around this, or I've got to build a session around this. Like I've got to do that.
Yes.
Never happened.
No,
Never
totally.
happened.
Never happened. So about a year ago, this digital map creator does these video maps that I get from. I subscribe to him on Patreon. He made a 4-story haunted lighthouse, and like I was like, oh, I got to use that in something. And of course, Scooby Doo, man, Scooby Doo.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Where are you?
beautiful. That's
Where
beautiful.
where is Scooby Doo? We need him now more than ever.
Yeah, but it was a lot. It was a lot of fun, to say the least. Yeah, it was a good con this year. I'm glad to hear you guys had a good time.
Oh
Did
yeah.
We
Scooby
had
go
an amazing
insane?
time.
No, nobody went insane, which was nice. Nobody went insane in my game. Maybe it was a little too nice on the players. I don't know. They were rolling like mad though. It was really good.
Yeah, because I was in my own like Cthulhu game. It was
Oh yeah, we should actually talk
90s,
about our con games that we did.
I suppose, but it was funny because I was doing the 1980s analog horror, where basically in the 1980s working on this radio station. Some weird broadcasts have been going in, so we're investigating. There were different professions as usual. So I rolled the office intern, and so I just decided for a joke, okay, what do you call an office intern who gets paid nothing and it's paid in experience? So instead of a name, I put in quotation marks, "Hey you," because I just said no one knew my name. All I do is make coffee. And the weirdest thing is my character, every roll, never lost 1 point of sanity. He was sane throughout the entire thing.
Hey, if you're an unpaid intern, you might as well roll with the punches.
But the joke was the other lady who played the other intern. She would always scream. She died, became a new character. Then that character died, and got the last character.
Oh yeah, I
Well-
definitely want to ask about that. Like, how did like we can talk about that later? But like, how is it? What did they make it analog horror? That's a style of horror I've been very interested in. It's a relatively new genre of horror.
Well, I'll say she did. I think this was an actually established scenario in Call of Cthulhu, I believe. I don't know where she got it though, but it was analog because there were like 4 videos she did show us that was in the analog type of style.
Ooh, interesting.
Right on, right on. Well, Nick did mention the games that we ran, and Chris, I don't know how much you heard about them other than the summaries that we put in our event submissions.
That's my main thing. Was running it all through. I know you guys ran a pair of games coterminously because I made sure to put your
Right.
tables next to each other, which was Aliens, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was Alien up above it and Alien down in it. No, I was not inspired by Nine Inch Nails with the title. Why do you ask? I was running the up above it table. Nick was down in it, and my PCs were the executives on this Weyland-Yutani. Ostensibly, it's a retirement space station, a luxury
upper
retirement
crust.
community. That's not to say that this is Weyland-Yutani, a retired scientist who was in the Up Above It crew, was doing some experimentation still. He was quote unquote retired.
It was a
Um,
hobby.
It was a hobby. And then Nick had the Down In It crew, who they were in the maintenance side of the station. Inspiration for the station design, kind of like Romulus, where there's 2 halves of the station, except in the center there was this giant domed park where Weyland-Yutani had genetically engineered extinct flora like cherry blossoms and things like this. And of course, this being Alien, things went sideways.
Sideways, very fast. But one of the main things that we want to do is make sure that since we had 2 tables, but as you know about the alien system, there's the concept of secret agendas and rivals and buddies.
And some of the buddies and rivals were at opposite tables from one another. For instance, in the Up Above It side, there was a husband and wife duo of PCs. The wife was the station administrator. The husband is the HR manager for the station, and she's fooling around with a pilot who's in the Down In It section. And part of her secret agendas was throughout the game, she's had enough of the husband. It's like, oh, wait, all of this is going sideways. Boy, it sure would be awful if something happened to him, wouldn't it? Her signature item, her small item that she carries around, is the unsigned divorce papers that she's been waiting to just throw at him. fast forwarding ahead to the end, one thing that was beautiful, this happened in our playtest, and it also happened in the live table at the end as everything was going pear-shaped and everything was going wrong. She shoves the papers at him, like, here, I'm done.
Again, like I
Go
love
ahead,
that
Nick.
that was like I love that that's the concept that they all went with because like that's sort of like that's the appropriate ending of
And
like her goal is like without it being a secret agenda concept. It's like no, I want her to be like if they make it out of us, he's just shoving those papers right in his chest. It's like these are
and
yours.
and another concept that we had, that this was only made explicit to two of the PCs, one on each side. There was a backup copy of the Ash AI from the Ash android from the original movie that was in the system on the station. Wayland Yutani's using him for his information of the events of the first movie, right? But he has his own ideas. So he has downloaded his consciousness into two android bodies, one that's at each table, but neither of them is aware of the other's existence.
And as a fun out of character sort of joke, they're both we casted like actors for the
For
player
all of the
characters.
characters.
They're
And
the fake the additional asses are played by two different versions of James McAvoy.
one is James McAvoy looking all proper in a suit, and he is an administrative assistant in the administrative side. The other is atomic blonde dirtbag James McAvoy on the down in it side.
I
And
was the down in at McAvoy in the playtest.
we have pictures of all of the characters on little standees around the table, and just the one of the things that we do too is we had it broken into a 3-act structure. And at the end of Act 1, we swapped two players from table to table. Two from
It's
each table,
we
swapping over to the
we could
other.
have had up to 3 for each. It just depended on how the play.
Yeah. Two was the sweet spot though. And the way it worked out
Was
is
better than we expected
it
and
was better than
surprising.
we expected, because we ended up with both of the Ash copies over at my table.
Oh yeah, you told me that happened.
But the party had split, so the two Ashes weren't together
Yeah, so the
until
party
the very
on his
end.
table was split, while my
And
table was more cohesive. So
and
therefore, they didn't realize the two James McAvoys were on there until the very end of Act 3.
and when the new Ash came in, I had the half of the group that he joined up with make a perception check. Like, something about this guy looks familiar. Make a perception check. Failed the perception check. And what's funny is both of the Ashes are sitting side by side at the table, and
Oh yeah, you were right. You told me about that.
while
Yeah.
he's making the perception, while the other player's making the perception check, one of the longtime GamerNation Con attendees got his 10-year badge. Jerry was playing the up above it Ash, and he's sitting there dancing his character identification, the little placard back and forth, like, look, you notice this, right? Look. But
Not noticed it.
It's in character. Why would the upper execs notice a lowly mechanic?
exactly.
Honestly, it does fit mechanically that like with enough distance, but if the fact that they were sitting there together, that just means like honestly, I was ready for the Spider-Man meme with them pointing at
Then
each other at some point.
for Act 3, we basically combined the two tables into one big table. We had a big set piece, but we pulled an old David Letterman. Remember when he used to throw the cards through the window behind him, especially when a segment was going off the rails and he was letting it, and would throw the cards.
I was more of the opinion like screw it, let's do it live.
Oh yeah, we tossed the big set piece because the interactions between all of the players and the various nefarious
Web of
hijinks and backstabbing and web of of deceit was much more interesting than the big monster fight that we had written for the final act.
I because yours was more chaotic. I described the big monster fight in the background, and they sort of, it represents they were doing like the philosophical opinions, like, that's the microcosm. What's going on here? Fighting against each other's interests with different origins and stuff like that. Meanwhile, on your side of the table, they were just Lord of the Flies fighting each other to the death.
Well, and that translated to table because we had set up rivalries between some of the PCs at each table, and as soon as one character from your side, Nick, was visible to the character at my table that had a grudge against her, he immediately just shot her between the eyes.
Yeah, that's an Aliens game, all right.
Yeah, that's an Alien game.
We
much fun was had.
We ended on the classic, like, there's an alien egg on there, but that's just that's to be standard, and that would have always been the ending. But it's like, the fact that it became like, no, we didn't have to do like, the real monster is man. They're already doing that.
Yeah, they did it for us, so.
No, it's funny how even though they were on the same team, the two McAvoys still didn't notice each other, because in the playtest, that didn't happen, and then the other one died in Act 2, so my McAvoy never met the other one.
Right.
Oh yeah, the surprising fact is there was so much fun seeing like the different. Honestly, we could play this same scenario like probably every GamerNation Con and probably get something different.
Okay.
Yep.
So now, do we want to talk about the Delta one, or save that for another episode?
No,
I think this is GamerNation Con recap.
Yeah. Then there was the Delta Green game. What is becoming our traditional 3-parter, where we do a relay between the three of us doing a 3-part game. The hook came from a joke meme that I saw shortly after GamerNation Con last year, which was, what if Bob Ross was a serial killer and his paintings were of the locations where he buried the bodies? We ran with it.
We took that torch and we ran with it.
That is Delta Green. Act 1 was pretty much, the one that I ran is pretty much just investigation. They chased down a few red herrings. And one of the benefits to using Bob Ross in this is that no one wants him to be a bad guy.
I've talked about that multiple times. Like, there's some, like, even when we were doing the playtest review, there was a part of me that, even though we planned this, a part of me was like trying to be like, no, I was buying into everyone like theories, like he's being framed. It's some sort of trick. It's not him.
Because I watched your Act 1 because I needed to take notes for my Act 2. It was so fun because, one, the red herrings you gave them, they like zoned in on that and would only focus on that.
Yes.
And
I did have to steer them back on track.
And then they used it to think about the other suspects.
Yes. And
you weren't there for the playtest, Robert, because that's exactly how it happened. No one wants to assume Bob Ross is the villain.
And
quote unquote.
At the end of Act 1 was always going to end this way. At the end of Act 1, they go back to a storage unit that they've investigated that Bob Ross has rented that has all of the accoutrements of a serial killer in it. And they find him committing one of these ritual murders and carving the symbols into his would-be victim who is still alive. In this case, they directly cut. Steve shotgunned.
He played
Bob
the SWAT
Ross.
officer, and he was like,
yes,
innocent in danger, bang.
My God, what's he carving into him? Happy little trees.
And Bob Ross falls, gunshot wound, hits his head on the corner of a table, and in his dying words says, "You fools, you've doomed us all." Well, he was committing these ritual murders, but it was to keep an elder god contained.
in one of his paintings, and he basically ended Act 1 by saying, "The ground shakes, and a giant beam of light you can see in the distance."
And he
I
hadn't
think that's
finished
where
the
we
final ritual. So then it
passed
passed
the
on
baton
to
over to
Robert.
Robert.
Yes, and mine was a little more first dealing with the fallout, where, surprise, surprise, the handler that gave them this mission is actually a yes but no with Delta Green, and he wanted them to succeed in killing Bob Ross because he wanted them to release this Elder God for steps upon steps, plans within plans.
Reasons.
And he basically said, "Okay, you let him out, good job. Now I'm going to tell you how to put him back in," because it's like you let him out, now you can put him back in because that's all I needed to happen. So it was basically like, okay, you need to get a few materials, but lucky for you, all these materials needed for the ritual, minus one that you can easily get. It's all at a secret underground facility underneath a National Guard base on Lake Huron.
Oh, I will say this for you, Robert, and based on both of my reactions from my players and your table as well, they both agree. Our depiction of quote unquote Gil, they hate him. They hate him. They hate him.
Good. That was the goal. That was the
And
goal, to
that
make
was
them hate Gil.
and that was the goal. But it was like they're like, we hate him. We hate him so much. And like, mission accomplished. We did it.
And yeah, basically they went in, got the stuff, had a big fight. I introduced some artifacts, which in Nick's Act 3, they really used one of them that I gave them.
You do need to tell them about that artifact, so that's an integral part of my part of the story.
Okay, this artifact I made up because in the Delta Green timeline in the books, it's that we're in a period of time where the U.S. government, the secret Delta Green U.S. government called Majestic, has made a deal with these extraterrestrial beings called the Grey, who have been giving them artifacts and information in return for them turning a blind eye to some of the more unethical things the Greys do with people. So I decided, okay, we're in that timeline. I'll add some usual Lovecraftian stuff, but I'm going to add this crystal metal-looking orb, like a crystal ball.
The
And
orb,
basically,
as they
it was
called
just
it.
called the orb.
They called it the orb as well.
And what I had them do while they were in their base, I led them on to one of them picking it up, and then I said, okay, you see a green light shoot out, hit your forehead, a green light shoot out and hit another character's forehead. Then I physically went up, took both their character sheets, and gave them the other one, and said, okay, you wake up, and you're looking at your body, and you're looking at your body. Your minds have been swapped.
It's a Freaky Friday situation.
Yeah, and when we play tested, that happened to Nick and I, and Nick's character was kind of schlubby, and I was playing an ATF agent, and Nick decided, I like this body better, and tried to kill me.
Yes, very much. It was even more hilarious because Nick was like, I go up to him, I put my gun right to his head and shoot. And he missed. Or no, he hit him for 1 damage, and I was like, okay, you nick his ear.
Well,
We've had so many interesting themes for GamerNation Con over the years, and a few years back for 8th convention it was GamerNation Con 80s. And so when you talk about Bob Ross, although I went with a different direction, I had an outline written, and I'm actually pulled it up looking at it now, where I wanted to do a Genesis adventure. It was the Heroes of PBS, and the idea was that the children of the world had psychically were scanned by a group of aliens to pick the greatest heroes of the planet to be given special superpowers to fight off an oncoming alien invasion from another group of aliens. And of course, the children of the Earth in the 80s, their heroes were Bob Vila, Bob Ross, Fred Rogers, LeVar Burton, Jim Henson, and Carl Sagan. Right, all these PBS heroes. And so it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
That's beautiful. GamerNation
I want to
Con.
play that. I want to play that. I want to play that. I want to play that.
GamerNation
down,
Con
Nick.
80s
Calm.
was the first year that I ran a game at the con, and I did DC Heroes, dug that up from the 80s, and all of the PCs were stereotypical 80s characters. It was Dazzler, Vibe, Booster Gold, Video Man from the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends cartoon.
Video Man!
Oh, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Well, I know that our time with Chris is limited, so we'll jump into Nick's part 3 afterwards
Yes.
because I know he has to go soon. So that does bring us to next year, which is GamerNation Con 11. To boldly go.
An issue with.
Oh, you have an issue with it, Nick?
Yes.
And what is that issue, Nick?
Why isn't it heist based? Why isn't it in Ocean's 11?
Why is it what?
Why isn't it Ocean's 11?
Because no, that's a good question. We figured, honestly, we kind of lucked into 10. We figured out a while ago we were going to stop basing our themes around the number. So we figured that a while ago. It's just not going to work very much anymore. But we did GamerNation Con 007, which was espionage based. That was our 7th convention. And honestly, it's just a little too close to that in terms of themes. So we're trying to do that. We haven't done anything even remotely sci-fi or space opera since GamerNation Con 4. Which was A New Hope, yeah.
My eyebrows, I don't know how high I can raise them. I'm like
that's fair. I know that a lot of people were buzzing around the con. Well, the alternate option is Stranger Things. And we're like, well, that's like the same theme.
That's literally the same thing as the 10th con, which is paranormal. But no, realistically, we
turned up to 11. Like
realistically, I mean, we also had ulterior motives behind this theme as well, in terms of pushing it forward. We were really debating a couple themes at the end of the day. The directors were, myself, my wife Krista, TG Twilight Goodness, and GM Dave. And considering the way everything is right now, we wanted to do things that would give people some hope. We toyed with the idea of pulp. Because pulp adventure has been on our list for a while, and everyone loves punching Nazis, and that would be very very impactful in our current climate.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean that's a national pastime.
It is a national pastime, but in the end, we decided it might be fun to have a return to science fiction, but more importantly, if there is an intellectual property that exists out there that is the epitome of a hopeful future, it's definitely Star Trek. So something to inspire us and give us something to shoot for and root for has always been the joy of what that property has been about. And we felt it was something that we all need right now.
That's fine, and I can agree with that. But also, in the name of Americana, freedom, and rebellion, I'm going to do heist games anyways.
You should do you should do a Star Trek heist game. That's that's gonna be incredible. That's what I want to see. And I've already talked to people like Darren wants to run like all Klingon combat game using the Arkham Horror system, but instead of horror dice, you have honor dice. Okay, there's so many. I want somebody to run like an economics game where it's all about negotiation and the whole party's Ferengi. There is no reason you can't run a heist game in Star Trek. There's no reason at all.
Putting those two together, Nick, putting those two together, you do a game that's a sequel to a piece of the action from the original series. They realized that McCoy left his communicator behind, and a group from Starfleet has to sneak back onto Iosha and get back McCoy's communicator. You have a heist. You have Star Trek on a 1920s planet. It writes itself. Damn it! I just wrote a session.
You just did it. You just did it.
Well, I'll say as someone who didn't grow up a Trekkie, it's going to be interesting to see next year.
Well, I will walk you guys through, because the good thing for me about the theme, I mean, aside from I love Star Trek almost as much as I love Star Wars.
I mean, you have the advantage here. Like I know Star Trek, but not as much as Star Wars.
Well, it pushes me
And again,
to get off my butt and actually learn Star Trek Adventures well enough to run it. Where
It's not a bad system. Frankly,
Yeah.
I'll be running Genesis.
That's my other option, because last year, for my solo game at the Lord of the Rings themed con, Scott Zumwalt has a partial Genesis Star Trek setting that he had started on, that he shot me the notes for, that I used to. I ran a session last year that it was Star Trek. It was
admittedly,
a
Star
holodeck story.
Wars can be done in a exploration in the unknown regions and stuff like that. That can be
Yeah.
that Star Trek.
Yeah, we've done that before.
But I did a
Just
Star
lean
Trek.
more into that. Yeah.
It was a holodeck episode where the PCs were playing Lord of the Rings in the holodeck, and what always happens in a holodeck episode? The holodeck short circuits.
Of
And
course, right.
all of the
Always,
safeties are off, and I was very glad when they rolled a despair, because I had in my back pocket that when a despair was rolled, the program glitched yet again, and they found themselves in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, I will say, Nick, Rob, if you guys are burgeoning Trekkies and you didn't grow up on it,
Well, I
there-
grew up in and out of it. It's like I
but
lean towards.
there's been so much. There's been so much.
It's
If
so much.
I can point you to one thing to get yourself jonesed up before the con, one thing is the most recent Star Trek television show, which is Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
You do not need to have watched any other Star Trek. You don't need to. You'll get it. It's okay. And it is
season one of it. It is actually really good. It's really.
It is phenomenal. It is truly phenomenal television. And Daryl, there have been at this point 2 versions of the Star Trek Adventure system published using the 2D20 system.
Yep, I've got both.
I would highly recommend you stick with the 2nd edition over the 1st.
Yep, I am waiting to. I'm probably this weekend going to go buy the starter set for it. I've got the core book, and I've got the GM kit, but I want to go get the starter.
Now, if you want to get really nerdy, and they're free, you can find it on Thingiverse, and you have a 3D printer.
Yep.
People have made tricorder dice cases for the 2D20 system. So
I've seen them. I've seen them.
Well, we can't get too nerdy. We're trying to appeal to all ages on this one.
But yeah, I know that I'm going to have to do some of the heavy lifting on plotting our traditional 3-parter for this one. I've already been trying to come up with some ideas, and what I'm thinking is each part will cover a different Star Trek trope. Like, say
that could be fun.
Say one is time travel, one's a holodeck.
I want to.
Why not have a connected like the 3 adventures are one malfunctioning holodeck or a set of holodecks. And then like one of you could be running fantasy, one of you could be running sci-fi, one of you could be running 20s gangster, Ocean's 11 heist, wink wink nudge nudge. And and literally like after every encounter the players switch tables, right?
Right.
That could be fun, just saying.
Could be.
I want a red shirt.
Well, see, if you're in next generation, the red shirts don't die. So
that's the worst generation. Because they don't die.
No, the gold shirts do.
Revenge of the red shirts.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Oh, yeah. We know enough. We have some ideas we can work with.
We've got a good year to figure it out.
I at least know what I'm going to cosplay.
6 months because you know how we procrastinate.
I at least know what I'm going to cosplay. I'm going to be Khan.
Yeah. So that's the one other question that I have, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, and I know you answered it on socials, but so that tens of people can hear it on the podcast. So past titles of the cons have kind of been punny.
Yes.
Wrath of Khan is sitting right there.
It was sitting right there. We talked about it. It was on the list, but we really wanted to lean into a hopeful message. And so to boldly go is important, and maybe a little yawny, but I'll take yawning over crying at this point right now.
I would have
Wouldn't we
said
all?
Beyond because like Beyond was the last movie, and that's where we lost a really great Chekhov actor.
Oh,
No.
yeah. Speaking of tears, yeah, Anton Yelchin. Oh,
You
That
have
would've-
to go and bring it down now, Nick.
Yes,
thanks,
I do.
Nick.
It's what he's there for.
Well,
Because
I know you got to
Ocean's
go,
11.
Chris. Nick is stuck up. We did have some ideas already if it were heists.
Look, we have a Star Wars game where we're pirates. We'll give you a heist. You can make a heist.
Yes.
Heck, Betsy and I have hinted about heists
and
before.
You could make a heist in any. You could have made a heist
Yeah.
for Paranormal. That would have been a fun one.
You go and heist something, and now you're stuck with an entity.
Well, I mean, Robert's part 2 was kind of partially heist.
Sort of a heist, yeah. Infiltrate,
I
get
mean,
the stuff, and get out.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. If it was heists, I had in my back pocket. Chris, I know that like me, you are deep dive Star Wars stuff, especially the weird stuff. I had Jackson's 11-5 ready to go.
Yeah. But it was great having you here.
Yeah,
it
was.
was.
Great.
I
Thanks
know
for
you
coming
gotta
on.
go. Thank you for giving us some of your time, and
Of course.
thank you once again for letting us join the fun.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for being such strong members of the community, running some amazing games for the con. I'm really, really, really looking forward to next year. And as we get closer to that time frame, in about a year, so maybe I don't know, in about maybe 9 or 10 months, maybe I can swing back around, guess with you guys again. We can talk about the upcoming con plans and get everyone kind of
love that.
jazzed and excited as we approach.
That sounds
love
like a plan
that.
to me.
We'll be there.
All right.
And in the meantime, where can everybody find you, Chris?
Well, ironically, we're having a brand new site built. If you go there right now, you may or may not find it functional. We're actually completely changing our hosting providers. Everything is getting kind of wild, and that's a whole conversation right now. But depending on when you're listening to this, d20radio.com is obviously the network site. But honestly, the best place to find us is right now is social media. D20 Radio, we've got a great community there. If you're interested in the Order 66 podcast, you can also find us on Facebook there as well. But honestly, the most poppin' place for D20 Radio and podcast discussion is our Discord server. And you guys can find us on Discord at D20 Radio. We have a very active community, including these fine folks
can put that, and we can put that
throw
in
a link in the show notes.
in our show notes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Gents, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank
and we
you,
had
Chris,
a wonderful
and
4 days at your convention.
Yes,
4
sir.
days of gaming goodness. I
Yes.
cannot wait for 4 more. Thank you guys. Peace, love, and good gaming.
Live long
Thank
and
you, Chris.
prosper.
See, you got it, Robert.
I at least know that much.
May the force be with you. Is in
Wrong
this house.
franchise, Nick.
That's what it is in this house.
It piggybacked off this one.
Yep.
It was a nice talk.
Yeah, it was. Chris is awesome.
Great time.
Great time.
Just like it was a great convention we had.
Yes.
Yes.
So, fill everybody in on your part 2, Nick. Or your
Plus part
3.
3. All right. So I'm just like last time on our previous GamerNation Con. I'm bringing up the rear. Part 3, the finale.
Bringing it all home.
Admittedly, a bit shorter than expected. Partly because I was a bit tired, a bit long-winded, but ultimately came out good. But here's how it started off. Off of your mission to the underwater base, they got all the materials they needed to reseal the great old one that they revealed. Cthugwa. The big fireball.
Catugwa, basically a giant spinning cyclone of fire.
And they got their usual help from Gil. Some
Help
Snarky.
is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Help, taunting, chiding, the usual.
a ladder truck with some water in it. And they had to deal with going to the ritual site on the 4th of July They dealt with some traffic, they got the materials they needed, they encountered some warrior women wearing pots and pans as armor. But the real fun began was of your little artifact, which I was sitting in on your session, so I learned about how you described it. Not necessarily
Yeah.
mechanics of how it worked.
I'll admit I did change the mechanics a little to make it easier, but yeah, I didn't think they'd take the orb after Act 2, but apparently they did.
They did. And
And from
one
my
of the
understanding,
characters was
hijinks ensued.
one of the characters was obsessed with the orb. Was asking for it like every other time I turned to them. They wanted the orb. And they managed to convince them to be given the orb. So here's the setup of the scene that honestly defined this whole session. There's a whole bunch of cultists configuring with all these like floating demon balls of fire and trying to like arrange them in a specific way, and they're eating other cultists who are like giving themselves off to make certain these balls of fire like bud off like a sponge, like reproduce into more balls of fire. So the person who wanted the mind transfer orb, for lack of a term, or as they called it, the orb every time.
Yeah, I just called it the orb of transference,
Or they just called it the orb.
which is a much better name, just the orb.
And I'm going to describe it exactly how they said it to me. It's like, okay, I'm going to approach the circle where the cultists are and the fireballs are. I am going to take out the orb, and I am going to, and I'm quoting, shake it up.
And suddenly
And-
the cars are playing in my head.
And toss it into the middle of the area.
And
To which
then
I
what
did have
happened?
to stop for a second. So like, wait, what? Yeah, I'm going to shake it up. It's like, shake it up. At no point did you at all involve like shaking it up in
Nope.
your description of the
No
orb.
shaking needed.
Well, that can't be good. I didn't even require a roll for it. Just like, okay, you shake up the orb and you throw it. And then describe it. I said like, a green light hits the area. Everyone in the area switches bodies. Cultists, player characters, indiscriminate. Basically, mind swap grenade.
Yeah, the way you described it to me first is that I thought he threw it. It just rolled on the ground, and how I said it was like small lights hitting each other's foreheads. I thought it was like a disco ball shooting off all these lights everywhere.
Basically, that's how it looked like. And the way I would describe it is like, the way he asked me, like, what happens? Like, well, I imagine that you use this orb and shook it up like you put Mentos in a Diet Coke bottle.
And
It
just
just hit
let it
everything.
ride.
That's just wild.
And how
And
many
yes.
how many players did you say got their body swapped?
Oh, there were 4 players in the zone, 8 cultists. So they all got mitts and mats with each other.
I admit I was playing a good game while you were leading yours, but I so wish I could have been there to see that moment and their reaction.
Luckily, because the mind swap had happened before, they used like intellect checks as well as like just visual checks of where they were to determine like, oh, I'm you, you're me. It's like, don't hit me, I'm them. And it had one of them like do a really cool like the ATF agent was able to do like a cool Jason Bourne like knockout move on one of the players who was taken over by a cultist who had the book, who could have been really dangerous with the book.
Oh, did he knock out Magnus to give it the book?
Yeah, Magnus had the book, but he was taken over by a cultist because he was in the body of a cultist.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And isn't the character who played Magnus actually die in the cultist body?
The cultist dies because they're eaten by the fire vampires.
So
So
the cultist died in Magnus's body.
Yeah,
Oh
they then
no.
took over their own body again, but they're like, yeah, that person's dead.
Oh yeah, the player who got Magnus really got the brunt of the stuff because She and that other character who actually was obsessed with the orb were the two people I swapped the bodies with. And he used
yeah.
the orb in my act 2 to beat a guard over the head with it, basically killing him. So I was like, okay.
He went completely axe crazy, but in the body he was in was just awful at every killing skill. Just went complete axe crazy, failed every skill to kill one person.
Yeah, I can get that, but
Meanwhile,
So they
Magnus
swap.
was the one like being like, no, I'm Magnus. Stop me. Get the book.
so the body swapped, and then they had to stop the ritual, right?
Like that's the abridged version, but that's the main thing. Like, it's like, oh, you stopped the ritual. That's how I preface this. Like, oh, congratulations, you stopped the ritual. Look at your hands. Those aren't your hands. Those hands are her hands, and her hands are his hands, and everyone's hands are different hands. You all switch bodies,
That's
which
fine.
caused all the fire vampires who are being like carefully like guided to like start like, well, we're just gonna start eating people.
As you do.
Of course.
And it just
then-
became chaos, and eventually they did succeed, but it was like very chaotic. Someone nearly died, but due to the power of rituals,
Not the
didn't.
power of friendship?
No.
No, but by the power of MVG and vulnerability.
Yes. They were able to survive, and they succeeded. And though it ended a bit early, honestly, I felt it was better for brevity rather than extending it.
Oh yeah. From what you described, it was a great ending.
The amount of
sounds like
chaos going on, again, like, I didn't even contribute to the chaos. It was entirely the orb.
And I didn't think the orb was going to be that big. I just made it because secret underground base studying the unnatural. You got to have some artifacts in there. So I just made them up.
Oh, even in my notes, like, the orb was just like, someone has the orb. I did not anticipate the orb to be, like, the literal, like, game changer of someone, nor their opinion to be like, grab the orb, shake it up, and just toss it in the... Again, like, he described his intention to me afterwards. I wanted one of the cultists and the other cultists to switch brains to disrupt the ritual. But, I
Well,
mean,
he got what he wanted.
Right?
functionally that worked. And honestly, the only reason I even like allowed that to happen was the way he described it. It's like, I am shaking the orb. Shake it up. Okay, this is an orb that transfers brains. You probably shouldn't shake it.
Yeah.
So I just went back to grade school silence. If you shake something that's volatile, it's gonna be more volatile.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that was up there, probably if not equal to. I'd say like maybe a point better than our Lords of the Holocron.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
admit personally, I like this 3-act one more than Lords of the Holocron.
Definitely, because we weren't constrained by a pre-written storyline. We got to riff, and we got to play with what the player's choices gave us to do. Whereas with Lord of the Holocrons, we're like, okay,
they're-
well, we know what Lord of the Rings does, so we have to get over here to this point and then to this point. So, yeah, Lord
Yeah,
of the
like-
Holocrons was fun. It was great for us to work out the kinks of how to do this 3-part relay, which apparent seems to be becoming our thing to do at GamerNation Con.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that being our thing.
This year we got to come up with something that was wholly original, and like I say, we got to riff.
And we riffed, and we enjoyed it.
Honestly, like again, the orb was never meant to be this important, but it's like it really changed it for like especially since their roles were pretty bad with like the extinguisher and the water pump. That made the whole battle like more tenable.
Yeah, and that's just further proof of what we said before. Like, sometimes the story's more interesting when you continually fail than continually succeed.
Or when
Exactly.
there's a random element that just
Or when there's
Changes the
something
whole
that you didn't
trajectory.
intend to be this big center point suddenly becomes this big center point.
Like, I swear, the amount of times that I heard going into before the orb was used, I knew the orb was going to be used for something because they kept on talking about the orb. Apparently, that was like a big deal to all of them.
And so, what else stuck out to us at the con? And now I know that our whole group had a nice impromptu game of Everyone is John with GM
Oh,
Dave.
that was amazing.
And for those of you out there listening who are unfamiliar with Everyone is John, it began its life as a one-page RPG, and Chris and Dave and GamerNation Studios, through a Kickstarter a few years ago, expanded out on it. They expanded the rules just a little bit, and the bulk of the book is just scenarios. But the idea is it is a competitive RPG. And the short version is that all of the players have will points that they have little tokens for. Your character sheet is a single double-sided business card where you have 2 to 3 skills that you can perform, and then you have a simple goal, a moderate goal, something that might take a check to resolve, and then a difficult goal, something that would take several checks to resolve. The only people who know the goals are you as the player and the GM. All of the players play different voices inside John's head.
The quote-unquote main
The main
players.
character.
The
The
player
character.
Right. You're all voices in John's head. And
You're competing for control of.
you're competing for control. And if you fail a check, then everyone bids using will points to see who takes control
Is-
of John.
The goal is to be the one to accomplish your goals.
Every time you accomplish your goals, you score. If you accomplish your easy goal, every time you do it, you get a point. Your medium goal, you get 2, and your difficult goal, you get 3. It does not matter which personality is in control of John when these goals are obtained.
Oh, no,
That
it
is-
doesn't.
You still get the points.
That is the quote-unquote arbiter, the GM, for lack of a better term, tallies that up.
And the thing is also, if you fail, we roll again. But if you take too long with whatever you're doing, John gets bored and falls asleep, and you got to roll for control again. So
Yes.
you got to do what you need to do, but you also got to do it quickly enough to where
Honestly, the
it doesn't
best
expand
explanation,
out the
if
story.
you've seen Marvel's Moon Knight, it's kind of like that.
And
Kinda.
the scenario you reran, basically John was an old Western cowboy in a gang run by a sheriff who was about to rob a stagecoach or something.
And wackiness ensued.
The number of times we as players got on our horse, went to the general store, went up the steps with the horse to break down the poor general store owner's door.
To get into the general store, to shop and
So
or
many times. And we were, or at least I was dying as it kept going on.
Yes. Dave is an amazing GM for Everyone is John, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
But honestly, I can even see that he was like, I think we were pussy.
Oh yeah, he was like, you go to the store again?
He's like, yes.
Oh my God.
we were
thinking of
pussy.
everyone-
I could see that it was him.
Thinking of Everyone is John, I just had a wacky idea to fit the theme for next year's con. But it's not Everyone is John.
Everyone is
It's-
con.
No. Well, that could be fun too.
That could be fun. Yeah. Wait,
I
I think I know what you're doing.
But
Yeah, I know
but
what it is.
Are you sure?
Never
Are
assume,
you
Nick.
sure?
I'm not going to assume. The
It's-
rules.
It starts off as Star Trek, just straight Star Trek, and they beam down to the planet, and it's paranoia.
Oh!
You are devious.
Okay, like I can't be involved because I want to play that. I want to play
That's
that.
very interesting.
Well, I mean,
I-
if I do it, we'll of course do a play test. So
Yeah, come on, Nick.
now
Obviously, but
the question is, are the PCs have to be Starfleet officers, and they're statted out like Starfleet officers and such, but they have to deal with all of the nonsense of the world of paranoia.
there's a lot to work with. That does a lot to work with.
That can be fleshed out later.
Oh my god. It's
Oh.
it's the original series characters. So one of them is Kirk. And what is one of the tropes that Kirk is famous for? Double illogicing computers to death. And who runs Alpha Complex? The computer.
Oh,
I really want time to play next year as a player, but I'm coming up with more and more ideas.
Yeah, you may get
Honestly,
that
I feel
Iron
like-
GM badge.
I don't want the Iron GM badge because the Iron GM badge means that you GM every available slot.
Yep.
Like, I looked at that. I was like, could I do that? Yes. Do I want to do that? No.
No, because I
not
want
really.
to play.
Not just because I wanted to play, but also like Stephanie explains it best. Like, I have only so many spoons, and even if this is a
Yes.
place where I can like, oh, I have so many spoons, it was like, no, even I would be like tired of running RPG games for that long.
But
Oh,
yes, with the everybody is John, we broke that door so much, and Steve, for me and Steve Talk RPGs, his moderate goal was break stuff, and we just
kept
for our own
breaking the
shenanigans,
door.
we kept getting him more
Wait.
points because we kept breaking that door. We broke a post. We broke some other
I mean,
stuff,
honestly, like we were doing the work for him.
and that's
We
the whole
were.
thing. Because also Stephanie had a simple goal of just get on horse, and nearly all of our characters started with "I get on my horse."
Honestly, I think she said it first, and then I used it as well. So, like, I think that's how she got the points because, like, I used the exact phrase, like, "Well, I'm gonna get on my horse," and then I would use the same phrasing as that. Honestly, I think it was just like a word like association. Everyone was like, "Okay, we're gonna do the same object and verbiage."
Yeah, and you went to the general store a lot, Nick. What were you trying to do there?
Well, I was there for entirely my secondary goal, which is exactly to go shopping, which I described entirely as this. I need a new hat, I need a new belt, and I need a new boot.
Yeah, you were oddly specific in needing a new boot.
A boot. And every time you got control, it was I get on my horse and I'm going to the general store. And Dave
I'm
just played that poor man like, no, stop coming in.
And I'm climbing
me
in there,
alone.
assisting with Steve's thing by breaking down the door. I need a hat, I need a belt, and I need a boot. And when you finally did get the girl, I was like, I need a hat, she needs a hat, I need a belt, she needs a belt, I need a boot, she needs a slipper.
The poor man. Yeah, that was everyone
Yes.
is John. And then we also, Steve is a very brave man because he ran that pickup game where we played half of the table.
It was a pickup game that he very graciously ran just for our group because we heard about his game concept and wanted
We
to
very
play
much
it.
liked it.
And the premise was, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that none of our schedules aligned to be able to get in one of the sessions of it. So he was very gracious to run it as a pickup game specifically for us.
Yes,
So
Steve is.
thank you again, Steve.
Thank you.
We
Steve,
need to have Steve on sometime.
And he said as long as we get that schedule working, he's glad to come on.
Yep.
yeah.
But yes, basically, there were 6 of us at this table. Half of the table were sort of like Bigfoot video hunters, not like hunting Bigfoot for sport, but like hunting to get proof of him, like if you've ever seen those like hunting Bigfoot TV shows. That's basically what they were playing.
Yeah.
And then the other 3 of us were playing a small group of small family of Sasquatches. I was the big tall father. Lawrence was the shaman mother, and another player, Betsy, was basically the teenage Bigfoot.
Honestly, I was expecting her to be my favorite, but it's between me and Lauren's shaman mom and your like big guy. God, it was like my favorite. Was at the end of it.
Yeah, and the whole thing is you're competing
Just
against
because
each other.
just because Betsy is great at playing the precocious child character was honestly like you two were like two MVPs on that side, in my opinion.
We definitely tried our best. I wanted to be the father trying to protect his family, but also he's also Bigfoot, so he doesn't understand these humies and their weird boxes with lights. And we had fun because it's basically it's not exactly competitive, but you're playing off each other. So what they did, we would react, and how we would react to them, they would react to us. And it
And it's sort of
basically,
going off of what we described earlier, like sometimes the better games, especially in role playing games, are when things don't go to plan.
but the biggest highlight was our Sasquatches got to the camp after luring the other table away, and we went into their camp and we opened Nick's character's tent. And Nick is a My Little Ponies fan, so we said in his
Proud.
tent there is a pile or an assortment of My Little Pony dolls. But so we played it off as Sasquatch, like, why are there tiny horses? They aren't moving. They're not doing anything. What's wrong? And we had seen Daryl's character like drink beer and stuff. We called it brown water. We were like, what is this brown water? Why is he drinking it? Brown water is dirty. And then my character was like, no, they've stolen the souls of these horses and they're drinking them, the brown water. That's why Nick's little character may be small of body, but must be big of spirit, because she's taking all these horses' spirits. And so we did this whole thing like we're pouring the liquor out on the fire because we're like, we must release these pony souls. And then we steal his My Little Pony collection and go to a cave to try and do a cleansing ritual. And while we're doing this,
Which
like
led to a very heavily involved dancing montage that happened throughout the whole entire session.
yeah, because basically I decided, okay, we're doing a chant, so obviously there's some dance. And then anyone who's ever seen Sonic 3, you just remember that one scene where
Yeah.
Robotnik, played by Jim Carrey, is just doing a dance off with an older version of himself. And they're just dancing that laser room to the song. And I was like, okay, that's basically what we're doing. And that became a running gag. And so we do the whole chant, but, because they're dolls, nothing happens. So we're like, it's too late for them, but we can avenge them. Well, at the camp, Nick's like, they took my pony collection.
They took My Little Ponies. They were mean. I know Steve mentioned it at the table, but several times going to, at, and from the post-con dinner, yet Steve wants to write a sequel to it specifically to how we played it. A sequel to our scenario, not the general scenario.
Yeah, he mentioned that while we were finishing up that he was like,
Yeah, he mentioned it at the table, but he revisited that thought several times going to dinner, at dinner, and on the way to drop him at the hotel after dinner.
oh wow.
Yeah, and he brought a good point up at the table because our group knows each other so well. We know how each other will react. So we basically just played off each other, and Steve was like, I didn't really have to do anything. I just got to watch you guys play this out.
I just got to watch you guys and every so often throw something out there.
Honestly, since I was also eating dinner, I would point out between moments while I was eating. So like, yeah, this is the average experience. Sometimes I do let you guys just I set the zone and let you guys sort of just run around.
Yeah, and
do
I'm
your
learning when to
things.
recognize when to do that as well. Just be
Yeah,
like,
when to let him riff.
It's hard, but like he understood the fact that again, like he had basically like 90% of our regular player base
Yep.
at the table. So, and we know each other. We know our limits. I didn't introduce the ponies into my character. You just know me. to introduce that onto that.
Yeah,
And
I think it was
rolled with that.
Betsy who said that you had the collection in there.
That's just us working off of each other, riffing off of each other, because we know each other.
Yeah, and a fun little Easter egg was Steve told us that he had run this before early in the day, or at least the day before.
Oh, he
And while
read
we
it
were
earlier because Lauren was there.
yeah, and while we were at the camp, we were trying to open the tents, and of course the tent has a zipper, so we had us roll to see if we could open it without, scratching and tearing it through.
Yeah.
And he said basically how it did is when my claws hooked on the zipper and zipped up, and I said my Sasquatch reacted like this, and then he just started doing this, and Steve was like, "That's exactly what the other group did."
There's just some fundamental things like instincts to players and everything. Like,
But yes,
honestly, like, and again, seeing that across like different tables, different board games, different RPGs, like we got to see similar things that we see in our regular tables, some new stuff, as well as
Oh
just
yeah,
like
like I said,
how similar we are. Like you said, like it's a big family of
yeah, it's
gamers.
always good because you can just go in there and know you will not hear one quiet table or an awkward table. It's just going to be laughing, exclaiming, just gung ho.
Even at tables that I was like, I did not know anyone. The awkwardness lasted maybe 5-10 minutes. Then it's all like once dice are being rolled, once something goes on, it's like once you connect with someone, and you're fist bumping each other, you're high fiving,
Once you get into character,
and as someone who's usually like, yeah, I use alcohol as a social lubricant, sober the entire time. Had a great time with everybody. Didn't need anything else but just like good vibes, good people, fun games.
Yeah, I wasn't just blowing smoke at Chris because he was on with us and our guest. This con, of everything, every con that I've gone to, I've been to San Diego Comic Con, I've been to local Comic Cons and fan expos and stuff, but this is the one that I look forward to every year because it is just such a welcoming, fun group that once I said it every time we talked about GamerNation Con, once you go, you're family. And
And
I was telling Nate and his guys from Tabletop Empire that I went Wednesday night before the con to pick them up from the airport because they needed a ride. And on the way to the hotel from the airport, they had asked what kind of things to expect because they've been to Gen Con, big gaming con. I was like,
I've been there
this
before.
is not Gen Con. This is 150 people max, and if you come back again, people may not necessarily remember your name, but they're going to remember the experience that they had with you, and they're going to welcome you with open arms because this is just a great big family. And
Same
we
thing.
all love the same thing. We all love games.
I've been to bigger cons too, but this is a con that's it's not like Celebration, it's not San Diego, it's not New York. But you know what? It's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you said, you might not know everyone's name, you may not know everyone's face, but someone will say like, "Hey, I played with this before you, and like, you did this cool thing that time that me and my group talk about."
Well, and one of the players who was at all 3 sessions of Delta Green, it was her second year coming to the con, but she played in 2 of the 3 Lord of the Holocrons sessions last year and remembered having fun with us.
yeah,
And
when she saw
the game, another 3-part game by us listed, she's like, I'm signing up because I had fun with these
Again,
guys.
There should be more cons like this, and I'm sure there are out there across these 50 states. But here in the great state of Texas, we got GamerNation Con.
Hopefully things will be in a slightly better place next year, that the Canadian contingent will be back and some of the people
Australians.
we're gonna even get the Aussies back.
Hopefully the Aussies haven't been The Aussies haven't been since 6.
Oh, I've heard the stories though.
I've heard so much that I need to meet these people.
I
The
mean,
Aussies need to come back.
there have been jokes about, let's start a Kickstarter to get GM Hooley back.
GM Hooley, he's basically the cryptid of this whole fandom. Like, I've heard so many tales. Oh, if we do get GM Cooley, or if we don't, we need to get GM Hooley on the podcast at some point.
I can reach out to him because I have him on socials, and there was one night a couple of years ago that he just messaged me out of the blue on Facebook, and we had a nice hour and a half long conversation about all kinds of just general stuff. So I will reach out to Hooley. It will be nice to have him on if he is willing.
Just saying, he's a legend.
Yes, I've only heard of him.
He co-hosted a podcast with Chris all about creating Genesis materials for Genesis Foundry called The Forge. You can still find the episodes archived wherever you find your podcasts.
Which sounds like a good way of segueing to the end of our
It's a
podcast.
good way of closing down this little venue of ours.
Yes, it is. So, speaking of places where you find your podcasts, also be sure to check out our website at howwerollgaming.com. And there on the site, you'll find links to all of our socials, information about our current campaigns, and a link to our merch store.
And you can also now directly support the show through our brand new Patreon. Finally got one up. Just go to patreon.com/howwerollgaming, and you'll see our different membership tiers starting in just $2 a month, with special recognition on a Discord server, and even higher tiers will give you on-air credit and discounts on our merch store. We're looking at other benefits too. We'll just need to finalize them since we're still in the baby phase. Still in the egg. We just need to hatch out.
Finally, if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, topics you'd like us to cover, or even submit your own RPG glory stories, which is something we do on this here podcast, shoot us an email at podcast@howwerollgaming.com.
And join us next time when we kind of stick with the theme of conventions and talk about putting together a convention game. I'm looking forward to it. How about you guys?
It'll be good practice for me and a good thing to talk about others too.
Absolutely.
It's a unique challenge, one that we're getting used to, but always used something other people might want to learn too.
Exactly. But until then, as always, I'm Daryl.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Robert.
And this is How We Roll.